Monday! Open wide, dev fans. Get ready to stuff your face with JavaScript, CSS, Node modules, barbecue tips, Git workflows, breakdancing, soft skills, web development, the hastiest, the craziest, the tastiest web development treats. Coming in hot, here is Wes, Barracuda, Boss, and Scott, El Toro Loco, Tolinsky.
Welcome to Syntax. In this Monday Hasty Treat, we're going to be talking all about our new laptops. That's right. Wes and I both got new laptops. We both got the same one, which is actually going to be really great that we can directly talk about our experiences. So Wes and I, we're going to be giving you a bit of a hands-on, a bit of a real-world review of these things. That's right. The new 16-inch MacBook Pros with the notch, with the M1X Max, whatever you call the processor, the Mac Pro, Pro Max, Max Pro. We're going to be talking all of that and more. My name is Scott Tolinsky. I'm a developer from Denver, Colorado. And with me, as always, is the Wet Boss.
Hey, everybody. Excited about this laptop. I am so stoked about it. So it's going to be fun to share it from a developer standpoint and a video editor standpoint.
I'm stoked about it, too. I'm very, very stoked. I'm stoked about the machine. I'm stoked about talking about it. I'm very into this thing. I'm also very into both of our sponsors today, which is two awesome S-based companies. That's Sanity and Sentry. Sanity is the structured content CMS for your backend, and Sentry is the error and exception handling tool. Now, Sentry is one of those tools that if you're releasing a product out there in the world, some code that people are using, it's essential to have this in your tool belt, because what this does is that anytime anybody goofs up or there's some code that's a problem on your site, it catalogs that as an error, an exception, depending on how your code base is handling those errors. And you can have all those things in a big old table where you can get information. You can see which users it's affecting, which browsers it's affecting, how many people, how many times per second that this error is happening to your users, and all that and more. You can attach to GitHub issues. It's the coolest service. And they keep adding more and more new tools, like their awesome performance metrics tools, along with a user misery score, which is just about one of my favorite namings of anything lately. I love that they call it a user misery score for performance. It's so very cool. So check it out at Sentry.io. Use the coupon code TASTYTREAT, all lowercase, all one word, and you'll get 2 months for free. Thank you so much for Sentry for sponsoring.
I have the best ad read here for Sanity. I was just looking through what they've been releasing. Sanity's always pushing out new stuff, and they just released Grok-powered webhooks. And I was thinking, we just did. Maybe, I don't know, a month and a half ago, we did an awesome episode on what webhooks are. And now Sanity's coming out with these really cool Grok-powered webhooks. And they linked to our Syntax episode about webhooks as a nice little primer as to what webhooks are. So, what a relationship we have here. So Sanity rolled out this thing called Grok-powered webhooks, which means that Grok is their query language in Sanity, and you can literally use it to query anything you want. And now you can put Grok into webhooks. So you could query products that are more than $20, or products where the price has gone down. That's one of their examples. And you can also give the old price and the new price in it. And you can literally query for anything that you want. And you can use this thing called projections, which will populate the data for them. They have a whole new UI for managing your webhooks, let alone Sanity being awesome for powering your website. But you could also use these types of things to post to Twitter whenever there's a sale on something that's more than 20%. You could automate the posting of these things to Twitter or whatever. You could do it all inside of Sanity Studio. It's pretty sick. Check it out at sanity.io/syntax for double the free usage share. Thank you, Sanity, for sponsoring.
Sick.
All right. New computers. We did an episode probably, I think about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when Scott and I both upgraded from the original MacBook Pro with the touch bar to the second generation with the touch bar. And we kind of went through it and we said, yeah, it's faster. We really like it. But there's still a lot of things here and there. Now, Scott and I both were running the old Intel, not old because it's probably faster than most people in the world's computer, but Scott and I were both running the Intel-based Core i9 MacBooks, and we have both upgraded to the new Apple M1 Max. So Apple released these new processors. They're no longer running on Intel chips. They run similar to the processors that are running in the iPad, and they are fast as heck, which is kind of cool. We're not going to this is not like a tech review show where we're going to talk about memory and processors that they're shared and whatnot. You can go watch a YouTube video on how that works. What we are here to do is to tell you, is this a professional tool that us as video creators and web developers are finding use out of it?
Word. Yeah, totally. And we're coming definitely from the perspective of people who work in code full time, but are also media producers, right? So we're working in audio, we're working in video, we're working in, you do graphic design stuff too, Wes. Do you ever do you do design in Figma now, right? Or you use Sketchhead or? I'm
still on Sketch. And the reason behind that is because I tried to switch over to Figma many times, but because Figma was entirely remote, I could never switch over because I had such poor internet up at the cottage, and it was just so unstable. Like you could save a local file, but then every time you made a change, you had to save another local file.
Wouldn't be great there, yeah.
No, but man, I was doing some Sketch the other day, and on my old one, I have millions of fonts installed on my computer, and the fonts drop down would always spin up in Sketch. I would get Beach Ball for 10 seconds. Fonts drop down on the M1, instant. Just so nice that it does that. I probably will move over to Figma now that I have good internet up at the cottage. But it's graphics editing is awesome on this thing.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's get into some of our initial thoughts. Off the bat, my biggest statement about this thing is it rules. It totally rules. It's the best. I love it, and I've been I don't know if I've ever been this satisfied with a tech purchase in my entire life. Not because the previous one was bad, but because this one is just that good. It is very, very good, and kind of shockingly impressive at every step of the way. So we both got the new M1. M1 Max, to be specific. We both got the 16-inch. We both got 64 gigabytes of RAM, and we both got 2 terabytes of hard drive space. So, needless to say, this thing is loaded up. It is kind of almost absurdly loaded up. But, when you're working in web development, you got to have 64 gigabytes of RAM for all those Chrome tabs. So, we got to be able, which is actually very funny because this computer is so good with that I've kind of lost track of how many tabs I have open at any given point. So it's almost like enabling a bad habit of mine.
I panicked when I was buying this thing because they announced it, and I was just immediately I knew that the backlog for buying this thing is now into January, and I knew that I had to get my order in immediately. So I messaged Scott. I'm how much RAM are you getting? Because my last one I had 32, and Scott went for 64 on the last one. And Scott's 64, baby, all day long. So I panicked and I did it, and it was an extra $400. And now that I've been watching my memory, how much it's using, how much it's caching, and also how much it's swapping. So swapping means that when you run out of memory, it will take the stuff that's in memory and put it on your hard drive. And then when you you've got 1,000 Pinterest tabs open, like my wife does, and they'll put that on the hard drive, and then you fire Chrome back up 6 months later when you still have your Pinterest tabs open. It'll take it off the hard drive and put it back into memory for you. And I so far have not seen anything greater than 3.5 megs of swap used. And I've been exporting audio, graphics, all that. So I think if you want the should I buy this as a web developer, I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say you don't even need more than 16 gigs as a web developer on this thing. 32 would have been more than enough for what I'm doing as a media creator. But can't hurt, 64 is pretty sweet.
It's just funny. I'm wondering about for me, VS Code. I'm looking at my activity monitor right now, and I must just leave a lot of VS Code tabs open or whatever. I have a ton of Code Helper processes that are taking up a good amount of memory each. So I don't know if you see that as well, or if that's the thing, but it definitely helps. You know what? I think the RAM component will probably come into play later a little bit more as we continue to use these things. I kind of bought this loaded up to be a forever machine, which is the funniest statement ever in computers.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen that way, but I certainly bought it with the intention of keeping it for a very long time. So
yeah, I'm just looking at mine right now, and it says I'm using 45 gigs of memory right now. I've got, I don't know, 3 large code projects open.
I'm using
on it right
that
now
much too. Yeah.
So maybe I'm wrong about that. 32 would be enough, and 64 is the other thing about this memory is that it will use it. Like when you have it available, people always complain about like, oh man, like I'm at 90% of memory and all I'm doing is running code in Chrome. Yeah. But like that's your computer knows, oh wow, that's a lot of space.
Memory is
Don't
fast.
mind if I do.
Let's leave things in memory. Yeah.
Exactly. And like if you don't have that much space, the computer is pretty smart about what to store on disk temporarily, so that when you fire it back up again. So there's that as well. But I've been watching the little memory. It's called memory pressure in the activity monitor, and that thing just stays low, even while I'm exporting video and whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm also curious about like if like regular developers need the Max or if the Pro would be enough. I would probably venture out to say that the Pro is more than enough for regular developers. But if you're doing any sort of media exporting, we'll talk about this in just a sec. Definitely the Max is probably worth your money.
Yeah. Yeah. I have such a hard time with it because my whole life I've been like if the computer costs a bunch of extra money to get the Max configuration, yeah, there is a degree in which you don't need that. I think the bigger argument for like what configuration you should get would be the 14-inch screen versus the 16, whether or not you need that real estate or not. And I only get the 16 personally because I use my monitor as my main or second screen when I'm connected to my setup. But if I didn't, I might get the 14 because I had a 13-inch MacBook Pro once, and it was an awesome computer. I really loved having that little 13-inch computer to lug around and whatever work on.
Totally. Also, we should say like these things are extremely expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I got a lot of like snide comments when I said that I bought it or when you post it and things like that. And it's frustrating to see because like I certainly don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, this thing is amazing. It's so worth it. And it's like, oh yeah, it's worth it to spend several, like, how much was this? It was like almost $6,000 Canadian for this thing. I think like the version we're talking about is 4,300 US. But honestly, we are business owners, we're professionals. If you run this thing for 3 years, which my last good laptop lasted longer than that. I still have my HDMI version of it. It works out to couple bucks a day after you have business taxes that you don't have to pay income tax on, and there's like a resale amount after 3 years. It's really just a couple bucks a day. And to someone who is a professional and this stuff matters to work as quickly as possible, especially video exporting.
Oh man,
all day long, it's worth it. Like there was a tweet from one of the devs that works on Reddit. And he says, for a team of 9, $32,000 of laptops saves $100,000 in productivity in 1 year. The break-even point happens at 3 months. Like it cut their Android build times in half, they said. And that's the sort of the standpoint that if you're in that realm of you need this thing to go as fast as possible, especially when you're paying a lot of money for these devs, it's going to be worth it at the end of the day.
I heard some pushback on that too. It's like, well, if we're trying to optimize people's output, like that's just kind of like what is that? The hustle culture kind of toxicity saying that we must be. But I don't even think that's what the argument is. The argument is that I get to go home sooner because my video export took 4 minutes instead of 34 minutes, and therefore I don't have to sit around while my computer is doing some heavy lifting. It's not like, oh, this computer is so fast that I can be overworked to death now because because I have that potential to just endlessly work. Yeah.
For me, as a code standpoint, it's more about like the feedback cycle of sometimes you have things that are like before the last Intel MacBook Pro, my restart of my Note app took like 6 or 7 seconds.
Save and wait.
Which is extremely frustrating when you're trying to debug something. And now the restart is under a second. And like that feedback cycle of being able to fix problems in, I don't know, like 8 times faster because you're editing code and trying to restart this thing is huge.
It also can have an impact in your brain too. When I save a file, I save it and I want to see, instantly if the thing worked or not or whatever. I saved this thing. I want to see if this worked. I don't want to have to save. And then if it takes a second, I am ADHD enough that my mind will wander in that time, which is absurd to say, but it's reality for me and people like me that I do need to minimize barrier to entry as much as possible there.
So let's talk about apps. Probably the biggest one that we spend most of our time in is VS Code. I had just written a note
really
here.
We had a really great little interaction this morning in our notes while we were recording this.
Oh, yeah. So VS Code still runs in Rosetta, which is if the apps are not updated to run on the new Apple Silicon, it runs in a VM called Rosetta. And you can see if something is running in a VM by opening up your activity monitor, and you can add a new column called kind, and it will say Intel or Apple. And I was like, yeah, VS Code still runs in Rosetta. It says Intel. And Scott's like, no, it doesn't. And I was like, what? So he linked me to this article, and I had to, we'll talk about this in a second. So I had to re-download code and just drag and drop it over top of my existing code install, and then it switched over to M1 Max.
You did like an import of all your stuff from your old
like a
machine.
Time machine restore.
Yeah, and I just started fresh.
You went fresh. I usually start fresh because, like, honestly, I think that's the way. But like,
it was a few days.
Couldn't.
Of pain. Yeah, it was a few days.
Yeah,
of pain,
I just couldn't do it. I've my schedule is so full right now. I've got courses that I'm working on, and I just couldn't take the downtime of hitting all these little issues. So I just moved it over overnight. Actually, at first, I tried to restore from Time Machine, which had 40 gigs of node modules in it. And moving over lots of small files is extremely slow when you're transferring files. And it told me estimated 57 hours to restore. God. So I deleted all my node modules, and I just did put the computers beside each other, and it did it over Wi-Fi. And I think it did it in 4 or 5 hours. Overnight, it did it for me.
Yeah, I started fresh, and I think maybe halfway through that process, I was regretting it. Even like into recording the first episode of Syntax that we did on these machines, I did not have like Slack installed, which is like what Wes and I used to chat. So there was definitely like growing pains. There were moments where I was like, shoot, I wish I would have done this. But now seeing the fact that you're going to have to redownload a bunch of apps anyways, makes me feel a little less overwhelmed about it.
I think that's the only one, because I went and checked.
Notion has an M1 that you have to download special.
Yeah, you're right. Notion is still running on Intel. So you're right. There's a whole lot of like homework you have to do there. And it doesn't seem like it has. Now I'm wondering what other apps are running on Intel that couldn't be. Like, why doesn't it tell you there's a M1 version available?
Yeah, you're just gonna have to go. Well, I got an email from Notion saying it was available, so that's what I knew. But for most apps, sure, I have no idea. And what's interesting is that there are some Electron apps that I have that said they have released an M1 version, but there's like when you go to download them, there's not that little dropper to let you select. So like Height app is another app I have that I was talking about a couple episodes ago, and this is an Electron app. And Height, I got an email from Height saying that their M1 version was now available. Go into their site, there's nowhere to download an M1 version. And looking at my activity monitor right now, it says it's running Apple Silicon, whatever. So are they able to automatically determine that in the installer? And like, why isn't Notion? Like, where's the, who's able to automatically determine and how, and why do you have to download special versions from some? And who knows there?
Yeah. Hopefully it will get better. I'm surprised it's not better by now. I'm just looking at my list of apps running. Spotify is still on Intel. Dropbox is still on it. ZSH is still Intel.
Discord for me.
What about Figma? My Figma is running under Intel. Is there a new version of that?
I think so, because mine's not.
Ooh, a new version.
Yeah, mine's running on Apple. Figma's running for Apple. I'm on Ableton Live, which is running on Intel. Express, VPN, Divi, Clippy. Yeah, that's about it for me.
We should also say that even though they are running on a virtual machine, in most cases, they're still faster.
You don't notice it, yeah.
Yeah, I did notice the one thing. I opened up VS Code, and the time it takes to open a file and highlight it, like when you do a fresh launch, I remember being like, oh, I kind of wish that was faster. And now that you told me, yeah, there's an Apple version available, that makes a lot of sense. And I installed it, and it's much faster to highlight the code when it's using Apple Silicon.
I think you're going to be shocked now that you have the Apple version of VS Code. I think you're going to be shocked at how performant it is, because it's very good. That's one of the things I've been most impressed with.
Yeah, just like switching tabs, finding, like, that's one reason why people still love Sublime Text, is that it's fast as heck.
Totally.
So I'd be curious to hear from those Sublime Text holdouts if they move to an M1 Max, if it's any good.
Totally.
Let's talk about video editing. That was probably the biggest push for me, because I was literally, when I have a course, I have to set aside, like, if I've got a course that's 40 or 50 hours, days. And this thing is just running 24/7 to export this thing. And I'm literally being here like, I will pay any amount of money to make this go faster at the end of the day. And I hear from people like, just get a M1 whatever, or get a what's the tower, the Apple Tower or whatever, or get a Windows computer or whatever. And I move around a lot. I just want everything on my computer, which is why
one machine.
Last time I only went 1 terabyte, and that I regretted it every single day, because if I record a course, it's often 300 or 400 gigs of screen recording, and I would run out of space all the time. And now I'm on 2 terabytes, and it's a good life.
I'm running out of space on my Synology. I gotta look at like upgrading that.
Oh man, just pop another drive in there. I still have 7 terabytes left. It's awesome.
How many do you have total? I think I only have like 8 total, which is the problem.
I think I have 12 terabytes. I have 4 or 5 4-terabyte drives in there. And then I'm running like RAID. I forget. Go back to the Synology episode. It's a lot. It's more than I'll hopefully need for the next 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. I have 4 terabyte drives in, but I am doing like a RAID config on them. So I'm doubling it up and then backups and stuff. But yeah, video takes up so much space. It takes up so much time. And this thing has been crazy for me because, so I use a little app called Recut, which I love. This app, it cuts out the silence programmatically of your recordings. So you drop your recording in there and you say, if it's below this threshold, just cut that section of the video out, which is perfect for me because, you know me, I don't make any mistakes. I'm perfect all the time. And the only things that I really ever have a problem with my videos is that there's like space where I'm taking a break to compose myself, to get my thoughts together, to think about the next section. And so this just cuts all that out for me. The other day, I recorded a video and I used Recut on it, and it exported a 20-minute clip in less than a minute. I actually had to double check to make sure that it didn't fail. I was like, wait, this is done? Did it fail? And then I watched the video. I was shocked that it was so good. And that's not re-encoding the video. It's just like removing spots of it. So that's why it was so fast. But then I had another one in DaVinci Resolve, which is my video editing platform. And I actually don't know if DaVinci is running on Intel. I think maybe a version of it is, but maybe not the version that I have. And that took about 8 minutes to export a 20-minute long clip, which again, it's just shockingly fast for me, but it was very fast. And the biggest part about this is that I could do it without having the computer plugged in, without the fans going bananas, without it turning into a new space heater for my workspace. So that was all pretty incredible.
Yeah, the first thing I did when I opened this thing up is I took a 25-minute long video and I exported that with ScreenFlow. I did them exactly at the same time, same video on both computers, and both were plugged in, and I clicked it, and the ScreenFlow on the old one took 23 minutes, which is about what I expect. So I think for every minute of video that I export, I export at 4K, super high KB kilobits a second. And it went over twice as fast. So I think it went down from 23. What was it? Let me pull up the actual stats.
You did the work. Let's get the stats. Let's see it.
All right. 25-minute 4K screencast on my 2.3 gigahertz Core i9. It took 22 minutes and 39 seconds. And the M1 Max was 10 minutes and 36 seconds. So about twice as fast exporting this thing. I did have somebody on Twitter say, like, are you having issues with the H.264 hardware accelerated export? And embarrassingly enough, I didn't know that was a thing. So I tried it and it was much slower. And I had a ScreenFlow came in and said, yeah, there's an issue with them and Handbrake. And so this is like an Apple issue on the M1 Max, is that there's an issue with the hardware acceleration export. Because I had like a 30-second clip on that I had to export on Handbrake. And the 30-second clip took like 9 minutes to convert. And so there's definitely an issue with the hardware acceleration exporting right now between ScreenFlow, Handbrake, a lot of these apps. So hopefully that will get fixed soon.
I don't know if you've like looked too much in the processor's like architecture, but did you know that there's like modules on the M1 Max specifically? I think not even on the M1, whatever, the M1X or whatever it's called. The M1 Max explicitly has individual modules on the processor to handle specific video encoding formats. So there's like there's a section on the processor just for H.264. There's like a section on the processor, and it's like built into the hardware. It's pretty neat,
man. Yeah, that I've seen some stats from people who use like proper video editing video editing applications. They say it's wicked fast. It makes sense. Like this is the stuff that professionals do, right? They export video, and that's one thing that they want to do. Like I was watching the MKBHD YouTube video, and he said he literally toted around an iMac to conferences so he could edit and export faster, and he no longer needs to do that. Other things is the waveforms draw immediately, and waveforms are huge for me for editing. Yeah, that's because I can see them draw. And is it not for you?
No. It's one of my biggest beefs with ScreenFlow, and one of the reasons why I don't use it is the waveform redrawing. But like, what boggles my mind is that they choose to fully redraw and like reprocess the waveforms on like every minor change. So you make a cut and it's like, oh, hold on, let's go ahead and redraw. Yeah, like why are you even doing that?
In there?
No other platform in the world does that. They're all like, they just leave it. So I have no idea why they change it. It drives me nuts.
I didn't get that either, and that's part of the reason why I have like I love ScreenFlow and I use it, but there's been I have like a little list of things that I'm like, fix this. Will you please fix this and stop adding dumb stuff like new fonts? And anyways, that went away entirely. It draws immediately because I'm always zooming in and out of my waveforms. And when you did that, it would always have to redraw, and that would sometimes take 5 seconds, and that's a long time. So this is awesome. It's immediate. There's no waiting for anything anymore. No matter, zoom around, edit the clip, ripple cut. It's all immediate. And then also another issue I've had for a long time is that when I edit my videos, I edit them at 2x. So it just goes like I'm watching it in 2x back. And then when I see an issue, I'll stop it and play it in 1x and fix it. And what happened is that after 60 seconds, the audio and the video would get out of sync because, and I logged an issue with them and they said, yeah, it's an issue we know about. There's like something bigger at play. And that was really frustrating because it's over a year I've been bugging them about this issue, and that totally went away. So both of I would say my two biggest issues with ScreenFlow are absolutely gone, which is just throwing more processing power at the issue. They are fixed. So I am so happy about that.
Let's get into some other things about this thing. Maybe, let's talk about code stuff. Wes, we can just have this be a really long, hasty trade. How about that?
Yeah, let's honestly, people that are interested love it.
Yeah. Okay. So code stuff, like you said, VS Code for you, not, maybe not as fast as you were expecting, but for me, very, very fast because I'm running the Apple Silicon one.
The right version
of it. It's been shockingly good. I have a billion tabs open as I want to do, and I have had no hiccups. My errors and all that stuff, restarting the TypeScript server, all of that stuff feels great. In fact, there's a setting in VS Code that I finally felt safe enough to turn on to allow you to check all of your entire project for issues. You have the issues tab, and it's usually only checking the files you have open, but there's a setting that allows you to check issues for your entire project, which was just simply not doable on the previous machine. It even says experimental, like could be a performance implications here. And I had that on. I've had it on. It's been fine. I haven't even noticed that it's on. So that's pretty neat.
My builds, I posted the difference between a parcel build that on my old one, my JavaScript would take 1.1 seconds to build, and now it's 745 milliseconds.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like it's not really a big deal because it went from seconds to less than a second, but it also just shows for larger stuff or for stuff that's more intensive, it's like 30-40% faster to run these builds and not changing any tech. It's simply just throwing the processor at it. So we're in a really good spot right now where the tooling is getting extremely fast. We're seeing stuff like SWC written in Rust. That's getting really fast. These computers are getting very fast. And those meeting together makes this development process really, really quick. So I was really happy about that. All my NPM starts are nice and fast.
Development
stuff that
has
goes
been
to
a dream on this thing. It's been a dream.
Yeah. The linting, all of that stuff gets way, way faster. The only thing that doesn't get faster is anything that needs to hit the network, and that is like NPM installs. They might go a little bit faster, but they still need to download files from the internet, and that is limited based on your network speed and actually writing files to disk, which I guess is also faster.
PNPM, baby.
PNPM, yeah, that'll probably make it even faster.
Mm-hmm.
So from a developer standpoint, like, it's funny because to be a developer, you really don't need much. You just need like a Chrome browser and an editor. But as you start to get into like really worrying about these things running fast and not having to wait 2 or 3 seconds, like also like when you're doing this type of stuff where like you save something and you have to wait for the linting to show up in your editor, you kind of get used to just like having like a 1 second pause. And then when that goes away, you go, like that's the biggest benefit to me besides the video editing stuff is like, this stuff is just really, really fast. And it just makes that feedback cycle in your brain much faster.
It no longer feels like the tools are getting in the way. It doesn't feel like the tools are the bottleneck anymore, which is a frustrating place to be when it feels like the tools are the bottleneck. Now it just feels like I'm the bottleneck, and I don't mind being the bottleneck because I like being able to control what the bottleneck is. If I'm feeling like I want to take more time, then I can do that, right? But it's on my own terms. But yeah, either way, development on this thing has been fantastic. Like you said, every process that you're doing feels faster, feels better, working and everything saves updates instantly pretty much. What about some other things, some hardware stuff? I really like the new power adapter. The MagSafe is great. It charges the computer very, very fast, which I knew they said that it would do that, but I'm shocked at how fast it can charge the computer sometimes. The speakers sound awesome, which the last ones did too. So I wasn't too shocked about that, but the speakers just, they're very good. I even think these ones are a little bit better, which I'm not sure why or how. I haven't done a net side-to-side comparison, but just playing music on it or whatever sounds great. The notch, I know you have some thoughts on the notch, Wes. I have not had any issues with the notch. I haven't done a ton of it. The thing that bothers me the most about the notch is that the menu bar is not the same height as the notch for me. So there's like, is it for you?
No, there's like a little couple pixels underneath.
Yeah, and that drives me nuts. And that's like the only thing. If everything went right up to the bottom of the notch, I would be like, this is perfect. But That's the only beef I have with the Notch. Otherwise, it's just extra free real estate.
It's been said a lot, but maybe we should say it one more time. Is that the monitor went from 1610 resolution to 1610 plus the notch height. So you're not losing any space to it. It's just that there's this thing that's cutting into it. And honestly, I don't care that much. I spend most of my day looking at an external monitor anyway. And the time that I have spent sitting on the couch or whatever, it doesn't really bug me. The thing that they sort of dropped the ball on is that if you have a lot of menu items or menu bar items, when it hits the notch, they just are gone. And there's no way to get to them. And like, so if you have like I had ScreenFlow running.
That's funny.
And I was like, how do I stop this thing? I have a keyboard shortcut, but if I wanted to click on ScreenFlow, or like I have a color picker, or I have so many of these stupid menu bar apps. I hate these things that don't have a dock item.
Oh yeah.
And
right, give me a
I was
dock
like,
item.
I can't.
Yeah, I know.
You literally can't get to them. Apple just hides them. There's no way. There's no like more. And like I know about Bartender, and
it seems like there should be a better solution than that.
yeah, I there probably will be, but like it's kind of surprising that they launched it.
That's what I'm saying.
Like that.
It's like they didn't like. Why did they not think about that? Or they're just like, oh, screw it. Well, maybe this was a last minute decision. Another thing that's weird about the icons up there is that I have on my external display, the icons have much less left to right padding, as in they're all closer together. But then on the MacBook Pro with the notch, it seems like when they increased the vertical padding, it also increased the horizontal padding on each icon.
But tons of padding on
So they're
them.
like way spread far apart. And if they weren't, it wouldn't be a problem.
I had to use Bartender, and there's a setting in Bartender. You can make them dense. And even with having them dense, I still lose some underneath because, Apple just put 50 px of padding on everything.
But that doesn't on the external, which makes no sense. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I noticed that or not, but yeah, now that I'm looking at it, you're right. That's nuts.
I know.
A big one I got was the power. So Scott and I, lots of developers use this CalDigit Thunderbolt 3 dock, TS3 Plus. It's amazing. The thing is awesome. It only charges at 87 watts, and the last MacBook Pros were 93 watts, and now these new ones will charge at 140. So people are like, oh, it's going to drain your battery. That is not the case. The 87 watts from the CalDigit keeps it topped up at 100% all the time. I'm running node processes, MongoDB. I'm running a video export. I tried throwing all I could at it, and it never dipped below 100%, which on my last one, if I ran video export for, 5 or 6 hours at a time, it would drain the battery while it was plugged into this thing, and I had to plug it in externally. And that has not been the case yet. I'm sure it will happen, especially people that run multiple Docker VMs. That will probably get it, but it's been just fine. And the thing to remember is that USB-C Thunderbolt 4 will only charge at a max of 100 watts. So the 140 watts is just for quick charging. So it hasn't been an issue, and you can charge these things on. I also have charged them on different third-party chargers, and it works great.
I have not done that. Interesting.
Yeah, the fans have never turned on for me.
Never heard them. Have not heard them.
Never heard them, at least.
Outrageous. For me. Yeah.
It doesn't get as hot, which is nice. Like, it's still warm when you're exporting video.
I'm almost surprised when it does get warm, though. I'm like, oh, it's getting warm. Huh.
Yeah. Oh, but the last one was like I think I probably could burn myself on the last one if I were to leave my hands on for 30 seconds.
I had the initial first MacBook Pro, the one that after they changed from PowerBook to MacBook Pro, and it was like one of the first ones off the line where they'd put too much thermal paste on it, and you seriously could burn yourself. There was like a advisory about it, about how you could burn yourself on it. It got that hot. So, yeah. This is a welcome change.
Touch bar is gone. Amazing. Friggin' trying to pause your music on the last one, that drives me crazy when you can't pause your music or turn the brightness up without having to like touch the stupid little touch bar.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to have all the keys back. The monitors, I'm running 2 4K displays on it, and is they turned on like almost instantly, like 3 seconds. And previously with 2 monitors, you plug it in and it does this like dance where it like flashes on and off and on and off, on and off like 6 or 7 times. And it finally lands on, okay, I think I figured it out. And the new ones, you plug it in and it's like instantly, or you open the lid, you see the monitor right away, or you change the resolution. You used to change your resolution and the screen would go black and then come back.
Mm-hmm. And then
changing the resolution is instant. I tried to snap there. I can't snap.
It really feels like the future. I mean, using this thing, it feels like the future, definitely.
What about the display? I know you love a good 120 hertz display.
Yeah, you know me. I love a good 120 hertz display. It's fantastic. It's crazy good. It feels good. You unfortunately get used to the 120 hertz really quickly, but there are times when you're doing like the, making all the windows go open and close or whatever to see the desktop, and that all just feels so good. It feels good. This thing is considerably heftier in terms of like a build, but it feels nice. It feels solid, and it doesn't feel like too much. And I for one am like all about making things slightly thicker to get more battery, more power, whatever. I don't need the thinnest, tiniest phone in the world if you can make the battery last a couple days or something. So
yeah, it's I don't know if it's heavier or not, but it feels girthier.
It's definitively heavier and thicker, but probably not by that much that you would notice it.
Totally. Still fits in the backpack and everything like that, and not been an issue. Battery lasts forever. I got this like power brick from this company that can charge 240 watts at a time, and I'm testing it out right now. And I was like, oh, I want to throw like the new MacBook at it, so I plugged the like MagSafe connector into it. And I was like, oh, I got to wait for this thing to drain. So I like worked on it without it being plugged in for like an hour and a half. And it got down to like 93%. It's very slow to drain the battery on it, which I'm extremely happy about.
It's awesome.
Any issues that popped up? Specifically, I had one that was my LG monitor, 4K monitor. The colors are just awful on it when I initially plugged it in. And it was like everything was blurry. The blacks were kind of washed out. And I could not figure it out. And then finally I updated to like a point release on, what is it? Big Sur? What's the new one? Monterey.
I have no idea.
12.0.1 Monterey. And that mostly fixed it. It's still not as good. Like I can still plug my old Intel one in and the colors look better, but it doesn't hurt my eyes. I'm really hoping that something in the next update will 100% fix it, because they must have known of the issue. So that was my only complaint on it, but everything else, man, so happy to have this.
I like the fingerprint reader quite a bit more on it too, because it's like a circle within a thing. You're never guessing if your finger's in the right spot.
Yeah, you can feel it. I had to do the whole thing where you train your left hand, because I have my laptop to the left of me on a stand.
Oh.
And I use it as just like a chat monitor and whatnot. And I had to train my other hand for the keys, because I use my left hand to unlock it, but the right one when you're just working on it. So you have to add additional fingers to it.
That's fun.
Yeah. What are you doing with your old one? That's the big question I get from everybody.
Oh, Courtney is getting it because her last computer is like an 8-year-old 13-inch MacBook Pro or MacBook. So Courtney has a computer for work, but it's often feeling like it would be really nice to have a computer at home to do her own work on her homework, her stuff for home at, not literal homework. And so she'll be getting that one, and she's pretty psyched about it because it's going to be an absurdly good computer for her is really what it comes down to.
When I got mine, I did a little Instagram video where I took all my old laptops and I just done with that one. I threw it on the pile and people got mad, man. It was a bit of a joke because I always keep one laptop ready to go. So if something happens to your other one, I can quickly go and keep working and keep deving on it. So
interesting.
Up until this point, I've had the one that had HDMI on it before this one. And I think I'm going to keep that one just because I like that one a little bit better. And honestly, I don't need to keep the really, really good one. The last one I sold to my sister for a pretty good deal. And this one, I maybe go to my wife, and she doesn't really like she does a lot of video exporting. So she does need like a fast machine, but I don't think she'll like the 16-inch form factor. So
I was saying to Courtney, it's like if you're not doing video editing on the last machines, they're incredible. Like the video editing is really one of the biggest downsides, because that throttling kicks in and then it takes a while. But if you're not doing that stuff, it's crazy good computer already. So
yeah, it's a good one. So I'm not sure what I'll do with that one. Definitely got to get rid of it, or probably not rid of it. I'll probably sell it to recoup some of the cost of this one. But sorry, we missed a couple things here. The ports. There's finally HDMI added to it. I was kind of holding out hope that they would add a USB-A. I knew that they wouldn't, but like I still have so many random cords and things that need to be plugged in via regular USB-A. People are always like, just buy a new cord, but I don't know if it's people don't have as much like random tech as I do.
I know, right?
I still need that type of thing. The microphone is okay. It's significantly better than last ones, and I'm happy about that, because when you Zoom with people who don't have an external microphone, but it's not a professional microphone by far.
Yeah, no, I actually did a video on YouTube about it, and people were like, it sounds pretty good. But I had put it under quite a bit of compression and EQ, and I made it sound good. It did not sound good. When I recorded it, it sounded like a laptop microphone. So I was surprised that it was even like listed as a selling feature. I know it's just Apple trying to be Apple, but to me, it was nothing special.
The camera is better. It's like pretty good. You can tell they do smoothing. Like my skin,
they do smoothing.
Like has a filter on it, which is like I don't look that good.
Yeah,
so
that's
it
interesting. Makes you look a little unnatural, like TikTok-y or something.
Yeah. And the keyboard is amazing to type on. I felt right at home on it. It feels really good. I'm just really happy with the keyboard on it as well.
Likewise.
Hopefully there's no Crumbgate again. Remember that?
Crumbgate. Yeah.
All right. I think that's it. Let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening to the Tasty Hasty Treat here, and we will catch you on Wednesday.
Peace. Head on over to syntax.fm for a full archive of all of our shows. And don't forget to subscribe in your podcast player or drop a review if you like this show.